My grandmother had spent 5 years without knowing who I was, 5 years calling me by the names of people who no longer exist. But the day she died, the nurse found something that froze my blood. A white envelope hidden between the pages of her old Bible with my name written in red ink, Valeria Cristina Ortiz. My full name, in that shaky handwriting she used in her last lucid days. Inside, there was a small, rusty key with an engraved number, 316, and a note of barely 3 lines that said, "The bank knows the truth. Safety deposit box. Don't tell your mother." When I arrived at the bank 2 days later with that key in my hand, the manager looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. "Miss Ortiz," he said, "we've been waiting for you for 22 years. Your grandmother left very specific instructions. You could only open this box after her death." And when they opened that safety deposit box, what I found inside not only changed my life, it destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family. Before continuing with this story, if it's impacting you as much as it impacted me to live it, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share this video, and tell me in the comments if you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything. Grandma Helena died on a Tuesday at 4 in the morning at the Santa Maria de Guadalupe nursing home in Querétaro. I was 200 kilometers away in my apartment in Mexico City when I got the call. The night nurse, a woman named Rocio, who cared for my grandmother for the last 2 years, told me it was peaceful, that she simply stopped breathing while she slept. I arrived at the nursing home 6 hours later with swollen eyes and an empty stomach. My mother, Patricia, was already there arranging paperwork with the cold efficiency that always characterized her. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She signed documents like someone signing a grocery receipt. Nurse Rocio pulled me aside when Mom stepped out to make a call. "I have something for you," she whispered. Rocio took me to the room where my grandmother had spent the last 5 years of her life, a small room smelling of disinfectant and lavender, with a hospital bed, a crucifix on the wall, and a window overlooking the garden. On the nightstand was Grandma's Bible, the one that had belonged to her mother and her mother's mother, with yellowed pages and a broken spine. Rocio picked it up carefully and opened it to the Book of Psalms. From between the pages, a sealed white envelope fell out, taped shut with old adhesive. My name was written on the front in red ink, Valeria Cristina Ortiz. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Elena wrote it," she said softly. "About 6 years ago, on one of her last good days, she made me swear to give it only to you. After her death, no one else." I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a small key, the kind used for bank safety deposit boxes. It had the number 316 engraved on the metal, and there was a note written on the same yellowish paper my grandmother used for her recipes. The handwriting was shaky but legible. It said, "Valeria, my girl. Banco Santander, Centro Histórico Querétaro, branch. Safety deposit box, 316. Everything you need to know is there. What your mother will never tell you. What I kept quiet to protect her, but what you deserve to know. Do not tell Patricia until you open the box. Forgive me for the silence. I love you. Grandma Helena." I read the note 3 times. Each word was a hammer striking my skull. I looked at Rocio. "Did you know what it said?" She shook her head. "I never asked. It wasn't my place." I put the envelope in my bag before Mom returned. Throughout the funeral, the rosary, the burial at the municipal cemetery, I felt that envelope burning against my side like a hot iron. Mom spoke with attendees, thanked condolences, organized the banquet with her usual professional coldness. I watched her movements, looking for any sign of real pain, guilt, hidden secrets. Nothing. Her face was a perfect mask. That night, back at her house in Querétaro, where I would stay for a few days, I tried to bring it up. "Mom, did Grandma ever tell you anything important before the Alzheimer's got worse?" She looked at me with those cold gray eyes. "Like what?" "I don't know. Something she wanted us to know?" She replied sharply, "Your grandmother said many nonsensical things in her final years. There is nothing to look for there." The next day, while Mom handled inheritance matters with the notary, I took a taxi to the Santander Bank in the Centro Histórico of Querétaro. It was an old building with pink cantera stone columns and marble floors that echoed with each step. I approached the customer service desk with the key in my hand and my heart in my throat. "I need to open a safety deposit box," I said. "Number 316. The employee, a young woman about 25, checked the system. She asked for identification, then asked me to wait. 5 minutes later, the manager arrived, a man around 60 wearing a gray suit and navy tie. His badge read, Licenciado Ernesto Guzman. He looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. "You are Valeria Ortiz," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Guzman led me to a private office. He closed the door and pulled an old file from a cabinet. The edges were dusty. "Your grandmother, Elena Ortiz, widow of Castillo, opened that box in March 2002, he said while reading documents. "She left very specific instructions. The box could only be opened by you, Valeria Cristina Ortiz, after Mrs. Elena's death. No one else had authorization, not even your mother, Patricia. We have been paying the rental fees for 22 years with a fund your grandmother left specifically for that. $5,200 that have covered all these years." I felt the floor shift under my feet. 22 years? I was 13 in 2002. What could my grandmother have known back then that required such secrecy?
Guzman escorted me to the bank vault, a room with thick concrete walls, security cameras in every corner, and endless rows of numbered metal boxes. We found 316 in the middle row. He used the bank's master key. I used the key hidden in the Bible. 2 simultaneous turns, a metallic click. The box door opened. Inside was a shoebox-sized cardboard box sealed with old brown tape that crumbled at the touch. The manager left me alone in a private room, a cold metal table, an uncomfortable chair, fluorescent light buzzing overhead, and that box in front of me. I took a deep breath and tore the tape with my nails. Inside the box were several manila envelopes, all labeled with years, 2000, 2001, 2002. There were old black and white photos. There were legal documents with official stamps. There were handwritten letters. And at the bottom, in a separate envelope marked in red letters that said, "For Valeria," there was a 6-page letter written in my grandmother's handwriting from when she was still well. I began reading and felt the world disappear around me. "Valeria, my love, if you're reading this, it's because I'm no longer in this world, or because my mind no longer belongs to me. There are things you need to know about your birth, about who you really are, about why your mother is the way she is, and about the price I paid to keep this family together." The letter continued with a revelation that shattered me. "Your mother, Patricia, could not have children. After 3 miscarriages and years of treatments costing more than $50,000, doctors told her it was impossible. Her uterus was damaged. She fell into a deep depression. Her husband, Carlos, your supposed father, threatened to leave her. At that time, I worked as a volunteer at an orphanage in Guadalajara called the Casa Esperanza. And a baby arrived there, a girl just 2 months old, abandoned on the door in a December dawn in 1987. You. The baby had a note pinned to her blanket, a name, Valeria, and a plea. Please take care of her. I cannot give her what she deserves. That baby was you, my girl, and I brought you home as the salvation of my daughter." I continued reading with tears falling onto the paper. "Patricia and Carlos adopted you, but not legally. At that time, adoptions in Mexico were long, expensive, bureaucratic processes. Carlos knew a corrupt lawyer who could forge birth certificates. They paid him $12,000. The lawyer created a certificate where Patricia appeared as your biological mother, as if she had given birth to you herself at the General Hospital of Querétaro on December 5, 1987. There was never a legal adoption. Never official paperwork, just a false document and a lie the whole family accepted as truth. I was there the day they brought you from the orphanage. I held you in my arms. I saw how Patricia looked at you with the mix of love and possession that frightened me from the first moment. The letter grew darker with each line. Carlos and Patricia made me swear I would never tell the truth. They threatened to cut me off from the family if I ever spoke. But the worst part wasn't that. The worst part was what came after. For years, whenever Patricia and I argued, she reminded me that I knew the secret, that if I contradicted her on anything, if I didn't do what she wanted, if I didn't give her money when she asked, she would say I was the one who arranged the illegal adoption, that I would be the one held responsible by law. She blackmailed me for 18 years. I gave her more than $80,000 from my savings and your grandfather's pension, all to keep her quiet, to protect her, and to protect you from the truth. I took other documents from the box. There was the fake birth certificate, an exact copy of the one I had at home. There was also a document from the Casa Esperanza orphanage with my real name, Baby Valeria, admitted October 5th, 1987. There were photos of me at the orphanage, a tiny baby with huge eyes wrapped in a sky blue blanket. There were receipts for payments my grandmother made to the corrupt lawyer named Sebastián Vargas Mena. There was even a cassette tape with an audio recording. The label said Patricia's Confession, February 2002. I searched the box and found an old tape recorder like the kind journalists used. The battery was dead, but the cassette was intact. I needed to hear it.
I left the bank with the entire box. Guzman wished me luck with a sad look that said he knew what I had just discovered would change everything. I went to an electronics store downtown and bought new batteries for the recorder. I sat on a bench in Jardín Cenea, surrounded by tourists and street vendors, and pressed play. My mother's voice filled my ears, a younger voice but unmistakable. "Mom, please stop asking for money. I've already given you too much." My grandmother's voice responded, "Patricia, I'm asking to borrow $2,000 because you owe me much more. Or do you want Valeria to know the truth? That she didn't come from your womb, that you bought her, that everything has been a lie?" I listened to the entire recording. 20 minutes of my mother and grandmother arguing, my mother admitting the adoption was illegal, my grandmother crying, saying she regretted helping, my mother threatening to sue her if she spoke, and at the end, my grandmother saying with a broken voice, "Someday Valeria will know the truth, and when that happens, you will lose your daughter, not because of the adoption, but because of the lies." I turned off the recorder with trembling hands. I looked at my phone, 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 messages asking where I was, if I was coming back for lunch, as if nothing had happened, as if her life wasn't a house of cards about to collapse. I stood up from the bench and walked back to her house with the box under my arm and a decision made. I arrived at Mom's house at 3 in the afternoon. She was in the kitchen making mole chicken, my favorite dish, wearing an apron and with her hair tied back. She greeted me with a smile. "I thought you got lost." I set the box on the dining table with a loud thud. "We need to talk," I said. She peeked from the kitchen and saw the box. Her face changed instantly. The color drained, her eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" Her voice trembled. "From Santander Bank, safety deposit box 316, the one Grandma Helena kept for 22 years waiting for the day she died so I could open it." Mom removed her apron with slow movements. She sat across from me. She said nothing. I opened the box and took out the fake certificate, the recorded confession, the orphanage photos. I laid them one by one in front of her. Mom looked at the documents without touching them, as if they were radioactive. 30 seconds of absolute silence passed. Then she spoke in a flat voice. "Your grandmother had no right to keep this from you." "No right?" I repeated. "She kept quiet because you blackmailed her for 18 years. You took $80,000 from her. You threatened her. And you lied to me my entire life about who I am." Mom closed her eyes.
We did what we had to do. I couldn't have children. Carlos was going to leave me. Legal adoption was impossible then. It took years, and you were there, available, needing a family. We gave you a life. We gave you everything. Private school, college, trips. What more did you want? I looked at her with a mix of anger and pain I had never felt. I wanted the truth. I wanted to know where I came from. I wanted you to treat me like your daughter, not your possession. Mom tried to justify herself for an hour, that she did it out of love, that times were different, that illegal adoptions were common, that she saved me from growing up in a horrible orphanage, that I should be grateful. Every word was a knife. At no point did she say, "I'm sorry." At no point did she admit she was wrong. She only tried to convince me she was the victim, that Grandma Helena had betrayed her by keeping those documents, that I was ungrateful for not understanding her sacrifice. Finally, I stood up. "I need time," I said. "I'm going back to Mexico City." Back in my apartment in Mexico City, I spent weeks researching. I hired a private investigator named Roberto Madero, who specialized in adoption cases. I gave him everything I had: the orphanage, Casa Esperanza, the date, my name, the note left with me. Roberto took 3 weeks, but found something. The orphanage closed in 2005 due to irregularities, but the files were transferred to the Jalisco DIF. With a court order obtained through a lawyer friend, we accessed my file. And there it was, a report from the social worker who found me that October dawn, a healthy baby, approximately 2 months old, wrapped in a sky blue blanket embroidered with bears. The note said exactly, "Her name is Valeria. I cannot care for her."
Roberto suggested I take DNA tests on family matching databases. I registered on 3 platforms: Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage, and GED Match. I sent my samples and waited 8 weeks. The results arrived on a Tuesday night. I had matches. A second cousin match named Fernanda Rios, who lived in Guadalajara. I sent her a message briefly explaining that I was adopted and searching for information about my biological family. She replied 2 days later. Her message said, "I think I know who you are. My Aunt Lucia had a baby in 1987. We never talked about it. It was a family secret. She was 16. My grandparents forced her to give the baby up for adoption. She named her Valeria before letting her go. Is that you?" Fernanda connected me with her Aunt Lucia Rios, my biological mother. We met in a cafe in Guadalajara on a Saturday morning. Lucia was 52, brown hair with gray strands, honey-colored eyes identical to mine, hands trembling as she held her coffee cup. She cried when she saw me. She hugged me for 5 minutes without letting go. "I'm sorry," she repeated over and over. "I was 16. My parents sent me to live with an aunt in León during the pregnancy. They said you would be given up legally, that you would have a good family. I didn't want to leave you. They forced me. For years, I looked for information, but the orphanage never gave me access. They said adoptions were confidential. I gave up. I thought I'd never find you, and now you're here." Lucia introduced me to my biological grandparents, Hector and Carmen Rios, elderly but kind. She introduced me to my 2 half-siblings, Diego and Camila, children she had years later after getting married. They knew about my existence. Lucia never forgot me. She had told them about the daughter she lost at 16. They welcomed me with open arms, without judgment, with genuine love. Diego, a chef, organized a family dinner where I met cousins, uncles, nieces, people who shared my blood, people who had my same gestures, my same laugh, my same long hands.
For the first time in my life, I understood where my features came from, why I was so different from Patricia, why I never fully fit into the family that raised me with conditional love and buried secrets. I spent 2 months divided between two families: Patricia, my legal mother, who still refused to apologize but called me every 3 days as if nothing had happened, and Lucia, my biological mother, who invited me to every family gathering and cried every time I left. One day, I made a decision. I hired a lawyer specializing in birth certificate rectification. I legally filed to correct my birth certificate. It was a long, painful, public process. Patricia took it as a personal betrayal. She stopped talking to me. She disinherited me. She erased me from her life with the same coldness with which she arranged my illegal adoption 35 years earlier. But I needed the official truth. I needed a document that stated who I really was, and after 8 months of paperwork, I got it. A new certificate where Lucia Rios appeared as my biological mother, where my real origin was recorded. A year after her death, I returned to the municipal cemetery of Querétaro. I brought white flowers, Grandma Helena's favorite. I sat in front of her grave and told her everything, that I opened the box, that I found Lucia, that I finally knew my truth. "Thank you, Grandma," I said aloud, not caring who heard me. "Thank you for being brave enough to keep those documents. Thank you for not letting the secret die with you. Thank you for giving me the key, literally, to find my identity. I know you suffered for this. I know Patricia hurt you. I know Alzheimer's may have been your way of escaping the guilt of staying silent for so long. But in the end, you did the right thing. You gave me the truth, and that is worth more than any material inheritance." It's been 2 years since I opened that safety deposit box. 2 years since my life split in two. I no longer speak to Patricia. She remains angry, resentful, feeling betrayed. Maybe one day she will understand that what she did was wrong. Maybe not. That no longer depends on me. Lucia and I have a beautiful relationship. It's not the mother-daughter relationship we lost for 35 years, but it is real, honest, full of unconditional love. My siblings Diego and Camila became my support network. My new family embraced me without asking anything in return. My grandmother's Nikon camera sits in my living room alongside the orphanage photos and the letters Lucia wrote but never sent. They are reminders that truth always finds a way out, and that family secrets, no matter how deeply buried, eventually resurface. Thanks to my grandmother Elena, I finally know who I am, and no one can ever take that from me.